So today in this video I'm going to talk a little bit about my invisible disease that is ulcerative colitis. So ulcerative colitis is a long-term chronic inflammatory disease that occurs in your colon and your rectum. And I was diagnosed with it about 2.5 years ago. So since I've spoken outwardly about the fact that I have this condition, I've had a lot of you guys reach out asking me to create a video to talk a little bit about my experiences, how I was diagnosed, as well as like a whole range of issues. I actually have got, I did an Insta story asking you guys to ask in with questions, so I'm going to do a little Q&A at the end of the video, and also I have like a little pretty here that I want to open too. But first of all, I guess I'll just like free flow talking a bit about my experience. Another thing that I do want to mention before I go into my experience is that everybody is different, and people with this condition can experience very different symptoms and also be on very different medications. So don't take everything that I say as gospel. This is just me and my account of it. When I first realized there was something that was up, basically, how do I put this nicely? My really bad symptoms were the fact that I had chronic diarrhea and I was bleeding a lot. There was a lot of blood in my stool, as well as like mucus and like some really, really unpleasant other things. Yeah, that was actually the main thing. I didn't really feel that unwell in myself, and I wasn't experiencing any fatigue at that time, so it was just that. And when I first literally saw that, when I went to the loo, I was pretty shocked and horrified because I'd never experienced anything like that before. Like, I guess I was gonna say I was disgusted. I wasn't that disgusted. Like, it doesn't take a lot to get me disgusted, hence I'm talking about this openly with you guys, which I think is important. But I was a little bit concerned. I told my family, and I also mentioned it to Ryan because we've been dating for a while, and luckily we have a very good relationship, so I felt comfortable enough to speak to him about it. And they all suggested that I speak to a doctor. I kind of actually waited a couple of weeks because I thought that my body would self-heal, and in loads of other incidences of just having minor illnesses, my body's always just taken care of itself. I've been so lucky. I've been relatively healthy and fit for the whole of my life. So this came as a bit of a shock. I mean, I don't even know what triggers it, really. Actually, there's no known like reason for it coming about, the disease, Crohn's or colitis. What I have read is that it's likely that it is genetic, or it can be caused potentially by an immune system reaction to bacteria in your gut. And I actually am pretty sure that that's what happened in my case. So after a couple of weeks of seeing no improvement in my bowel movements, I decided to go to the doctor, and they told me to collect a sample. I was even really slow at like getting the sample back to them. I just wasn't taking it seriously enough, and basically my symptoms started to get worse and worse, and then I did start to feel really unwell. I started to feel really, really swollen around my stomach, and I mean I've never really experienced swelling before. I don't have any intolerances to anything, and it's not like I'd had like IBS before, which people get very confused with. They think that IBS and Crohn's and colitis are similar. They're not. They're completely separate things. But I had nothing to compare this to or to put the blame on, except for actually the fact that Ryan basically and I had eaten a couple of weeks before. We'd eaten this food, the same food all day, which was like in a packet, and it had chicken in it, and he had really savage food poisoning, and I didn't have typical food poisoning symptoms. Fast forward 2 weeks is when the bleeding started, so that could have been like maybe a causal factor in developing the condition. But I think obviously I would have had the genes already inside me to kind of that were, you know, pre-existing within my system, that then this food poisoning might have stimulated my immune system to overreact. So yeah, I think that's what happened. But even from speaking to loads of doctors and things, no one wants to put a label on it or give you an actual answer because they just don't know for certain. So back to the story, I basically ended up getting the stool sample tested, and they couldn't really find like an answer to what it might be that was causing the blood. and started to get more and more panicked about it, especially as bowel cancer runs in my family. It's quite prevalent. My uncle sadly died of it. I don't want to get sad, but it's actually really sad, and it's something that obviously you need to be cautious about because things like that can be hereditary. And that is also one of the symptoms of having bowel cancer. So I spoke to my parents about it, and they they insisted that I took matters more seriously. And the first step, I guess, into getting a diagnosis was getting a colonoscopy. Now, on the NHS, you have to wait a bit longer to get a colonoscopy, just because obviously, like, our healthcare system is under so much pressure, but it's still a wonderful thing. So I'm super grateful to have access to something like that. But I wanted to fast track it, so I actually paid for a colonoscopy that I got done over in central London. And what I found crazy though was that I don't think, to be honest, the colonoscopy, I actually ended up having maybe 4 or 5 months after my symptoms first came about and after things got really out of control, which is way too long. If you have symptoms that you think could be, if you have symptoms for anything, just don't wait that long. It's just not worth it. I started to get pretty unwell, but I did leave it a while. And I'd had the bleeding basically every single day of my life without fail. Sometimes I was going to the loo 8, 9, 10 times. So essentially everything I was eating wasn't getting absorbed and was coming straight out of my system, because the ulcers were so bad all down the lining of my colon. But before I had the colonoscopy, so before you have a colonoscopy in general, I was given laxatives to take, which clear the bowel so that when they go in and they look inside your pipes, there's nothing blocking the area, so they can have like a clear vision of what's going on inside you. Funnily enough, the laxatives that obviously like forced everything out of me, also got rid of all of the bleeding. So for that, while I was taking them, I think it was just 24 hours before or 48 hours, and you can't eat anything before, the bleeding actually stopped. So then when I went in for that first colonoscopy, the guy actually he wasn't certain that I had the condition, and he couldn't really tell what it was that was causing all of the bleeding because he couldn't see it there, which was really frustrating because not only had I spent loads of money on having the colonoscopy privately, but I didn't get an answer, and then that kind of threw me off course for a little bit, and I just got a bit fed up, and I then didn't chase it up enough and follow it up enough. But I knew that I did have the NHS colonoscopy booked for a couple of months after that, whenever I had availability. So I was like, at least I've got that as my safety blanket, so I can kind of like keep trying to crack on with my life, and then I'll have that, and hopefully I can get a diagnosis for whatever this is that I have now then. Bearing in mind I'd never heard of ulcerative colitis before, ever. I'd heard of Crohn's before because I knew people that had developed it when they were younger, but I'd never really asked that many questions about it. It was just something that I knew existed. So I guess it wasn't until the second colonoscopy that finally my symptoms were really bad by that point, and they could see all of the ulcers. So when I was diagnosed finally with the second colonoscopy, and told I had ulcerative colitis, that was a bit of a turning point for me because at least I finally knew what it was that I had. So I did a bunch of research into the condition because I was very interested, and also I was then prescribed the right medication for me. Initially I was skeptical about going on any heavy medication because I just don't really like having to heavily medicate my body if I can avoid it. So at the start I basically I was taking enemas and suppositories, both of those you put up your bum. Luckily for me, Ron and I had been dating for a while, and we were very comfortable at that point because I would literally lie on the bathroom floor or even in bed pumping this liquid with the medicine up my bum before going to bed, which is really charming. But he was very supportive, and I think, you need to surround yourself with supportive people when you're going through like a potentially life-changing condition like this. Anyone that's not going to be supportive, cut them out because it's really not a big deal to put stuff up your bum in the grand scheme of things when you're very, very unwell. That didn't work at all. there were no positives from doing that, and I think that method of medication is only good if the disease affects like the rectum, basically the area around your bum. But mine was further inside, so I did have to take medication. I took, I think it's mesalazine is my ongoing medication. I've never had to take steroids before. I know that that's the next step, and there's tons of different steroids that people are offered when things get really bad, and there's steroid injections too. But yeah, so that's basically my experience with it, and I'm really, really lucky right now because I did follow the medication, and I did take the kind of stronger medication for maybe 6 months, 8 months, basically a year straight. It did its job, and then I reached a point where I felt better, and I did take myself off the medication. Again, that's not something that's advisable for everybody, but I now am in a period where I haven't had a really bad flare-up in about 6 months, so yay! There's like good news like at the end of the tunnel. Something that people, if anyone's watching this video that doesn't suffer with ulcerative colitis or Crohn's, they won't know a lot about the disease. But basically you have it for life. There's no cure. There's no finite, like sort of, oh yeah, take this and you're going to be done with the disease for life. Like bish bash bosh, combat, woohoo, I'm better. It's something that you have to manage, and you go through periods of remission, which is where the symptoms are really minimal, and you don't really see signs of the disease, and you feel pretty good in yourself. And then you have flare-ups, which is when the disease takes over your body and you start to feel really bad. Okay, so just to talk about the symptoms a bit, I want to make it known that people can have very different symptoms, and they can vary hugely in severity. So when the disease gets really, really bad, you have to be hospitalized, and you have to undergo surgery to basically remove your colon and then live with a stoma bag. But that is actually better than living in a great deal of pain and with really severe symptoms and losing a lot of weight. So yeah, basically you can get really bad fatigue, you tend to go to the bathroom a lot more than usual, and you have absolutely no control of it. I actually remember now, again, this isn't overshare, but it's funny because now I feel good. I kind of forget about the times that were really bad, but I literally like shat myself just sitting at my desk like quite a few times when it was really bad. Like I just had no control whatsoever. A lot of bleeding in the stool, well, varying degrees of blood in the stool. Mine was a lot. Rapid weight loss, because imagine if you have ulcers all down your colon, you absorb your nutrients in your colon, which is the big and little intestines, and so yeah, essentially if there's inflammation there, you can't absorb anything because nothing will permeate through the lining, so you're not getting the nutrients that you need to grow, and thus you don't have any energy because you need food and then calories to give you energy to live. So that's where the fatigue comes in. You can get really swollen, inflamed, red and itchy sore eyes, really excruciating stomach pain, which is strangely not a symptom that I suffered with a lot, especially not at the beginning when I had all of the bleeding. The random pain for me came on a lot later, and that's something I get more of now. I can tell when if I'm about to get a flare-up, or if I'm not doing this, I'm not treating my body with the respect that it needs. That one of the symptoms that I get, which is quite strange, is I'll literally get on the right side here. So if I eat the wrong things, I will literally have like a huge dome that comes out here. It's maybe that big, and I can literally, if I'm lying down, I can feel it. It's sort of that far raised above my abdomen. It's lower than my abdomen, it's sort of there, and that's a really, really strange sensation. What are the other symptoms? Loss of appetite. For me, I think this isn't necessarily one of the kind of direct symptoms, but it can cause anxiety amongst sufferers, because it's just a hard condition to manage and to share with people close to you. And also obviously like there's the embarrassment issue of having to run to the bathroom, and like not having control over that is really, really painful and sometimes hard to talk about, which is why I want to make it easier for people to talk about it, hence I'm doing this video, because you guys need to be comfortable with it. So when I reached a stage where I was comfortable that I had been diagnosed with the disease, I'd shared it with my close friends and family, and actually I started to speak to a lot of people about it. It was crazy. I remember sitting in the gym and discussing it with someone that I actually don't even know if I'd ever had a conversation with, and it turned out she also had ulcerative colitis, and her mum did too. And the more people that I spoke to about it, the more I realised that it is something that people do have, that it's just not widely spoken about, because I'm sure most of you will actually know someone that does suffer with the condition. I think it's 1 in 420 people in the UK have either Crohn's and colitis. So it's become, and I hate to say it, it is becoming increasingly prevalent, especially in urban areas and developed countries. Don't ask me how or why, but I'm undertaking in some research to help with better understanding the disease itself. But yeah, so when I became more comfortable with it, I wanted to work with a charity that basically supports Crohn's and colitis, to do everything that I could to help, and I've started working with Crohn's and Colitis UK. They've actually given me this little present. But yeah, basically I've started working with this charity. They're really great. If you suffer with the disease, please do get in touch with them, because they have amazing sort of packs to send out to people that hopefully will help, and they're just really good at fundraising. So I did an amazing event with them, which was the Walk It in London, which was an opportunity for me to meet loads of other people suffering with the disease and their families, and we went and walked a 5k. Actually, there was a 5k and a 10k around central London, which was, yeah, it was a great event, and it raised lots of money. So hopefully I can do lots more stuff to support the charity. They also have given me a really cute bandana for Koji. He came down on the day when we did the Walk It, and he represented, and Sam and Ron actually came too. So I'm very lucky to have such a good support system. Let me open this little gift. Like, really nailed this in. Oh my god. Okay, lol. Okay, so these guys have very kindly given me, I think I know what this is, because I did actually read the note before and then I forgot. I wanted to save the unboxing for the video. This, that's cute, so I've got a little badge. I can pop that on there. This is a head torch. Oh my god, I can't believe I'm actually doing this. Oh, okay, I need to fasten it. Oh my god, it actually like raises up. Okay, what the heck? Maybe it needs charging. Cheers guys for sending me one without a battery. But basically it's a head torch, and this is to support their night run that they've got coming up, and I need to double check when that is. I think it might even be in, I don't actually want to say the wrong date, so I'm going to check and then I'm going to write it below. But fingers crossed I'm around, because I really want to support with that, as their events are always lots of fun. So thank you guys so much for having me as an ambassador for your charity, and I want to continue to do as much to support you guys and spread the word, and to familiarise people with the condition. So to finish the video, I just want to do a really quick fire question round talking about the condition. So I did an Insta story asking you guys what you wanted to know about ulcerative colitis. So if I swipe up, I can see all of your questions. Okay, first one. How often is it active? Okay, so when I first had it, I had it really, really badly, especially at the beginning, but the symptoms were continuous for a good year. Then the medication started kicking in, and I kind of reached a period of remission, and then I've probably had 6 severe flare-ups since then. A couple have been more notable than others. Like, there's a few examples when I was away and I literally could not get off the loo because I wouldn't stop bleeding, and I couldn't eat anything, and it was, I mean, that was really, really bad, and I felt incredibly weak and I just wanted to come home. I think when I travel it always gets a lot worse. How does it affect your everyday life? Big respect for doing this. Oh, thank you, Jessie, Grace. How does it affect my everyday life? Right now, not hugely, because I'm not having a flare-up. I actually do think, though, I forgot to mention this in the symptoms bit, that it affects my brain. I think that there is such a thing as colitis brain, because well, they say that your gut and your brain are intrinsically linked anyway, which is why like your gut can have such an effect on your mental health and like maybe chemical imbalances. But I find that since being diagnosed with it, like I get my memories worse, and that I get very confused, and I kind of like I can't focus as much. But in general, like there's really bad symptoms of fatigue, and then the going to the bathroom a lot. They're the worst parts, and I don't have them at the moment, thankfully. Do your doctors help you figure out what makes it worse, or just give you meds to hide symptoms? So I actually had to go to the doctor for regular checkups because I was losing a bit of weight, like consistent weight at one point when it was bad. And I would go every couple of weeks to the Charing Cross Hospital and speak to the gastroenterologist there. And to be honest, they don't connect science with nutrition at all. So they would just give me medication and told me that that would make things better, and if it didn't make it better, that I needed to come back. So I think that a lot of doctors believe that like science and medicine is the way forward. Do you suffer badly with fatigue, and how does that impact on your social life? Yes, when it's bad, I do suffer with fatigue. I don't want to get out of bed. I get really bad joint pain as well, and I think actually that is a symptom apparently that you can develop arthritis. But yeah, I get really like sore and very affected by everything, and really, really tired. And I suppose the main way that that affects me with my life is not being able to do exercise as frequently, which sucks because exercise is something that I absolutely adore, and it's now my business. What food do you have to avoid? So just to briefly touch on it here, just in case you don't see the other video that I do, but if I eat nuts, I mean, it's like game over for me. Like lots of vegetables, raw vegetables are not good for me, and sadly anything really high in fibre, especially if my symptoms are bad at the time, I have to be very careful and just eat like a lot of white food. Which doesn't sound like that if you're tired, but I mean, you'll do anything when you're experiencing a bad flare-up. So do you take any vitamins to help your immune system? The only things that I'm taking at the moment, I go through phases and I try and be good with taking vitamins. And I have a whole cupboard which I can show you guys downstairs, but basically I'm only taking ZMA in the evenings, which has got magnesium in it that tries to chill me and helps with sleep, and then I'm taking like hair supplements to try and get the barnet to grow nice, long and silky. Thank you so much for watching, it means a lot to me, especially as this is like one of my first YouTube videos and I'm a little bit nervous and I waffle too much, but it's a cause that's obviously very close to my heart. It's something that I suffer with. So yeah, if you guys want to know more, then please do ask lots of questions in the comments box below, and even if I don't answer them in another video, which I will try to, I'm really excited to just reply like via message format there. Yeah, so give this a thumbs up and subscribe and share with anybody that you know that suffers with the illness, or anyone who you think would appreciate watching this video.